I'm now going to do a pastel painting of a bottle, but it's going to be in oil pastels rather than chalk pastels. I'm working on just very cheap black paper here. It's actually quite shiny. I'll just show you a quick something first. This is a chalk pastel. Soft pastels or chalk pastels. With your finger you can smudge that. That's a chalk pastel. Oil pastels, it's oily, can't smudge it. Okay, I've also got here some...
Smudge it a little bit.
Yeah, slightly. Crayons. Crayons are transparent, they're not opaque, so working on a dark colour, it's not going to work so well with crayons, but we can do something with crayons in another session because they're quite useful. So that's a quick difference between the pastels. So I'm going to do this bottle in oil pastels. Got various different oil pastels. You get some very cheap ones which are mostly binder, not much pigment, so you're not going to get a lot of pigment on your paper. It could well be quite transparent, so it's worth having some decent ones, but use what you've got. Just quick outline, make sure I've got enough space on the paper. Yes, make sure it's going to fit on the paper. Just doing a quick outline first, a little bit where the shoulders are. I'm doing this quickly as a demonstration, but you can take your time and really make sure that you've got your proportions right. If you're fussed about that, but it doesn't matter. I could do another demonstration about drawing and proportions and stuff. This one's about using oil pastels. So that's the basic shape of my bottle. I'm going to just mark in where that lid is, which is sort of there. Come back and do a bit more on the lid later. And there's a line where the clip goes. Okay. So while I've got the white pastel in my hand, I'm going to use this as an undercoat where I've got some lighter green. A lot of the bottle is transparent and darker green, so I can just use the green as it comes without doing anything else to it. Not worrying at the moment about where it's got these lovely patterns on the bottle. I'm not going to worry too much about where those are at the moment because I can work on those later. Right. Now, I've got some white pastel on here. I'm putting green pastel on the top and squodging the two together. This is my technical term, squodging. More pastel you have on there, the better you can blend the two together.
Can you buy a squodger?
No, squodgers do not exist. Well, I don't know, they might do. This is my technique, squodging. There's actually a bit of lighter green in here, and I have slightly lighter green. And the nice thing about oil pastels is you can mix colours together. Now you can see that one there, it's gone hard. Not a brilliant pastel, that one. It's gone hard, so it's just scratching off what I put on there. So I'm hoping this one's gone a little bit softer. Some of these are quite old. Yeah, there you go. It's not quite so hard, it's sitting on the top. And those colours will blend in, so I get those different shades of green. Green glass, blue glass, and any of the colour glasses are just really lovely things to draw, to paint. Apparently, technically, if you're using pastels, you're painting, which I think's, I don't know, doesn't sound quite right to me. Still feels as if it's drawing.
Pasteling.
Pasteling, yeah. So this all looks quite solid still at the moment. Nice thing you can do is to scratch off some areas. With a palette knife, and you can go back in and put in some highlights like that, or another thing you can do is use a bit of paint. So mixed medium, this is acrylic paint, tube consistency, so that means I haven't put any water to it at all. It's just as it comes out of the tube.
So are you painting that directly onto the pastel?
Painting directly onto the oil pastel, so it's a water-based paint sitting on top of pastel. On the oil? Sits on top of the oil and it will dry. Carry on with some more of this lighter green. And there it's blending over the top of the white, mixing in with the white. Add a bit more of the darker green again. And one of the things people say about oil pastels, said, oh, I don't like using oil pastels because you can't get much detail in them. They're quite chunky and blobby. I'll show you how you can get some detail. A bit more down here. So let's see, is that one? Yep. It's a bit hard. You get a little bit of yellow in here. As you can see, you can't really see that yellow, but it's blending in with the green to change the colour of that green slightly. Now I'm going to try and get these patterns that are in the bottle here. Beer bottle, it's got these lovely little shapes in it. I'm going to go back in with my paint. This time I've got a little bit more water with it, and I'm using a rigger brush, a very thin, long brush, to get some fine detail. The paint has started to solidify. Come on, get off. There you go. Okay, so a little bit more highlight here on the side of the bottle. This is a very pale green highlight, so I'm going to paint it white first and then go over the top with some green to make that stand out as a green highlight. Some little white areas, again there's a bit of white at the top here. This is a really satisfying technique for getting some nice interesting highlights. A couple of bits there, that was a deep sigh. And on the neck of the bottle there's some more interesting shapes of highlights there. Little blob there. I'll add a little bit more to that. Quite a nice bright highlight there. Now on these shapes on the bottle, again they show up as a bright green. So I'm going to put them in with white, then go back over the top with green. And some of them they show up as black lines, so I shall scrape those off in a bit. So there's a little highlight where these raised bits are on the bottle, these little patterns. And highlight there. There's a little highlight on the side here actually as well. Interesting curve there. That noise is Jim humming. Happy in his work. And over this side there's a bit of a reflection of some colour on the side from the pastels that are next to the bottle. So that'd be quite nice to get that in. And blur that in a bit. Smudge that in. So now I need to leave that white paint to dry. I don't want to try doing anything while it's still wet. I've got to put the colour on the top once it's completely dry. So I can do some of the scraping off back to the black to get these patterns. So again, just using, could be anything. This could be chopped up bit of credit card. Anything sharp that will dig through the pastel. And you get little bits like that. Happens over this side. Nice scrapey noise. And if I scrape these bits off, I'm going to get some colour into there as well in a bit. There's lettering over this side. And okay, some darker areas here. And at the back of the bottle I can actually see the back of this shoulder is a dark line. So put that in or scrape that out. Okay, and up the top here again there's some more darker areas here. So this is how you can get detail into your oil pastel pictures. You can get nice fine lines just by scratching away. Put the colour on and then scratch it off and you've got some nice detail. And there's some more lettering over this side. Can't see actually what it is. And here on the white, it's a bit of lettering showing through there. Down the bottom here, again you can see through the bottle to the back of the base of the bottle. At this point, it's a bit of a light sheen generally on that bit. There. Okay, so I am going to pick this out from the background in a minute with some chalk pastel. It doesn't take particularly well on this, but I think that'd be an easier way of doing that. So for now, I'm going to concentrate on this bit. These are the arms of the spring clip. Again, it's a clunky, chunky bit of pastel, not easy to get a detail, but I can scratch off what I don't need. I can scratch back where that hole is in the, bless you, in the cap there. Now, bright red, this is a tricky one. Not sure which one's going to be so good. Just try colours up here. That's quite dark. That's very hard. Oh, that's quite a nice one. Okay, so just a little piece left. And over here I've got this little bit of colour that's being reflected from next to the bottle. I'll get that little bit in. And there is some over this side actually. Okay. And right, so the bit of detail at the bottom of this arm, can lift that out. Get that detail in, so I'm drawing into the pastel using my sharp edge of a palette knife. And get some of the highlights on the metal there. Lift those out by getting some of the darker areas in. And where it joins the lid, there is a hole there. So again, just scratch away where the hole is in the lid. Now, any loose bits on here, I can just wipe off with a tissue. Reshape that bit. Don't need that there. This is the other arm. And again, just get an indication of the highlights on there. Reshape that little bit of the lid. So the other thing you can do with pastel, just as you can paint on there with white, is you can paint on there with black ink. So I've got a little pot of black ink here, again using my rigger brush so it's nice and fine. And I can add some detail there, a little bit darker into that little bit of the hole there. And you can even take it over the top of some of the pastel there. Again, it sits on the top. Leave it to dry before you do anything else with that. Okay, so a few little bits up here are going to be light green rather than white. So I am going to use just watercolour paint. Again, this can be with ink. You could use a nice bright green ink. because it's sitting on the white, the light comes through from the white, it reflects back through it, so you still get that sense of transparency. And here, make these a transparent green. That's a nice light white highlight there. Don't want to completely cover that bit up. So because the ink underneath was acrylic, that set solid, it doesn't sort of rework with water. So putting watercolour paint on the top of it is not going to mix in with the white, it is going to sit on top of it. Again, a bit too much there, wipe that off. Okay, so now we're making this stand out even more from the background. I'm going to put some pastel, chalk pastel around it, but just going to scrape that bit off, a bit of extra there. Now in theory, if I try and put pastel over the top of the oil pastel, chalk pastel on top of oil pastel, it won't take. You can see it's dropping down there. Take these off. If it sits on the top and I find I've got some pastel there that I don't want, I can scratch it off. And unlike with the oil pastel, I can blend the chalk pastel with my finger to get a nice blurry soft background there. This paper isn't quite so good for chalk pastel as it is for oil pastels because it's such a smooth finish. I prefer a slightly more matte finish for using chalk pastels. And again, let's see if this will, yeah, sitting on top there. I'm going to use some blue here. To lift this out for the background slightly, and again blend it in. You can see there I had a little bit of oil pastel from one of my original sketch lines, a little bit of oil pastel under there, so that has left a mark. So where the chalk pastel is sitting on top of the oil pastel, it's left a mark there. Not ideal. Let's see if I can recover that. Scratching it off. So here I'm trying to scratch off that bit of oil pastel that's underneath the chalk. coming back in now with a wet brush just to try and wash off the pastel where it's sat on top of what I've just painted. Just yeah, where the chalk pastel is sitting on top, and I don't want it there. I can wash it off. Wash around the edges. And it's not going to wash off the oil pastel because that's oil based. Water isn't going to touch it. You can see there the water just runs off it. Got some extra chalk on there. Get rid of that. Dab it off. And because this is smooth, I can rub the chalk pastel off quite easily. Yeah. There you go, that's a bottle in oil pastel with a bit of ink, a bit of paint and some chalk pastel, a bit of scratching. Have a go. Bye bye.